Understanding a MINSK-II agreement in Ukraine crisis. International leaders strive to find a diplomatic solution to the current Russian-Ukraine hostilities. The 2014 and 2015 Minsk agreement have come up as a possible answer. The deal was negotiated in the Belarusian capital, Minsk. That's why it is called a Minsk agreement. However, MINSK-II was never completely implemented, and many of its critical concerns remain unsolved. Let's talk about MINSK-I. In September 2014, Ukraine and rebels supported by Russia reached a 12-point agreement. Its conditions included prisoner swaps, humanitarian assistance, delivery, and withdrawal of heavy weaponry. The agreement immediately fell apart, with both parties breaking it. Now let's talk about MINSK-II. Again in February 2015, in Minsk, representatives from Russia, Ukraine, the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, that is OSCE, and the leaders of two pro-Russian separatist areas, that is Luhansk and Donetsk, signed a 13-point accord. At the same moment, the leaders of France, Germany, Russia, Ukraine assembled and issued a statement of support for the agreement. Now, what were the 13 points of the agreements? Let's see one by one.
The 13 points: 1. An immediate and comprehensive ceasefire. 2. Withdrawal of all heavy weapons by both sides. 3. Monitoring and verification by the OSCE. 4. To start a dialogue on interim self-government for the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, in accordance with Ukrainian law, and acknowledge their special status by a resolution of parliament. 5. A pardon and amnesty for people involved in the fighting. 6. An exchange of hostages and prisoners. 7. Provision of humanitarian assistance. 8. Resumption of socio-economic ties, including pensions. 9. Restore full control of the state border by the government of Ukraine. 10. Withdrawal of all foreign armed formations, military equipment and mercenaries. 11. Constitutional reform in Ukraine including decentralization with specific mention of Donetsk and Luhansk. 12. Elections in Donetsk and Luhansk on terms to be agreed with their representatives. 13. Intensify the work of a trilateral contact group including representatives of Russia, Ukraine and the OSCE.
Now look at the background of the crisis. Pro-Russian separatists in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions declared independence from Ukraine in 2014. Fighting between Russian-backed rebels and Ukrainian military in this area has killed more than 10,000 people since 2014. Let's see what were the situations after MINSK-II was signed. The worst of the fight came to halt, and OSCE monitors were deployed. The OSCE continues to patrol the front lines and reports ceasefire violation along the border to this day. However, compared to 2014 and 15, there is far less combat and far fewer casualties. The agreement was at least partially fulfilled in this regard. In Ukraine, 1.5 million people were internally displaced and approximately 14,000 people have been killed as a result of the violence. Now look at why the agreement was failed. The Minsk agreement was hastily drafted. Although Russia was a signatory, its involvement in the conflict was overlooked. The term Russia does not appear in the text at all. Since then, the Kremlin has been able to claim that it is only an observer and that an agreement between the Ukraine government and the separatists in the country's east is required. Despite proof that Russia backs the separatists, meanwhile Kiev refused to speak to the insurgents directly. Furthermore, the agreement's text is ambiguous, with Russia and Ukraine viewing the political roadmap differently. Before holding local elections in rebel-held area, Ukraine needs to reclaim control of its international border. It also wants the Russian military to depart. Of course, Russia claims that it has no force in the rebels-controlled territories. Moscow wants election held while the rebels control the region and before Ukrainian authorities reclaim control of the border. Attempts by Western diplomats to square this circle have failed miserably. The status of the Donbas rebel-held territories has never been determined. Within a federal system, Kiev believes the area should have same level of autonomy as other Ukrainian regions. Moscow viewed terminology in the Minsk agreement referring to the unique status of some portion of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, permitting these territories to have their own police forces and judicial system, among other benefits. However, any Ukrainian administration that agrees to provide special status to the Donbas may face popular opposition. Ukrainian nationalist organizations were outraged when then President Petro Poroshenko proposed constitutional modifications on decentralization in 2015. 3 policemen were killed in Kiev riots. Why is Minsk so significant to Vladimir Putin? If viewed in Moscow's favor, it might be a method for Russia to maintain its influence in Ukraine through pro-Russian Donbas militia. It would give Russia sovereignty over the land without annexing it. This might offer Russia, through its proxies, a seat in Ukrainian parliament as well as the opportunity to obstruct any distant Ukrainian attempt to join NATO or the European Union, a major condition that Russia claims must be granted in order to ease present tensions. People with Russian citizenship and those who have been awarded amnesty for killing Ukrainians might potentially wind up in the Ukrainian parliament depending on how the elections were conducted. Ukraine would be further destabilized as a result of this. Whereas Russia is concerned about its security because in the west of Russia, all the countries are members of NATO except Ukraine. The West is also like Ukraine to join them, and Ukraine has also applied for the membership. So Russia is seeing this as a threat and wants to control this area. In 2014, Russia invaded and occupied Crimea. It was the very first annexation after the Second World War. In next video, we will understand NATO organization.